Go. Microphone's on. Hello, everyone. I'm Evelyn Godfrey. I'm one of the elected directors of Mid-Counties. We're going to be having a panel discussion now about overcoming barriers to fair employment. So we're going to have a little talk about how we can support people who face challenges in getting work, whether it's their social economic background or education or lack of work experience or physical and mental health challenges and neurodiversity, and how we can make the hiring process more fair and inclusive. So we've got three panelists today: Rosie Guinday, Joe Fortune, and Pete Westall. And I'm just going to ask them to briefly introduce themselves now.
Thank you. I'm Rosie Guinday, and I'm the founder and CEO of a social enterprise called Miss Macaroon. We're based in Birmingham, and I set up the organisation back in 2011. So we make and sell premium gluten-free French macaroons, and then we reinvest 100% of the profits in supporting young people with multiple and complex needs to build their skills and confidence and help them to get into work.
Lovely. Hello, everyone. My name's Joe Fortune. I'm the General Secretary of the Co-operative Party. The Co-operative Party is the political party of the cooperative movement. We have been around for a little while, but right here and now, we are a campaigning political party who seek to change the world, improve communities right across the country by putting cooperative values and principles into practice.
Thanks, Joe. Pete Westall, so I've got two hats. My day job, if you like, is Chief Values Officer of Mid-Counties Co-op, our AGM here today, which I'm sure everybody's enjoying. For purpose of this panel, I'm also chair of Bright Future Co-operative. Bright Future looks after employment of survivors of modern slavery, has been established now as a cooperative for some 3 years or so, and has put over 70 survivors back into full-time employment.
Okay, thanks very much, all the panelists. Some of you may have heard the medical saying that if you want to enjoy a long and healthy life, the first thing you have to do is choose your parents well. It's probably the same case when it comes to employment. But for those of us who aren't born with that advantage, what generally have you found are the most common barriers that people face when they're seeking employment? Maybe Pete, could you kick off with that?
Yeah, so I'm going to take this from a survivor's point of view. So you have to bear in mind a typical survivor of modern slavery has had a background and a journey which perhaps they don't want to talk openly about for fairly obvious reasons. One of the barriers in traditional employment, mid-counties used to do this, other employees still do. You will typically ask for a CV. You will typically expect an employee or a potential employee to have experience of how the interview process works, and you will start asking questions about their background. Why have you got a gap on your CV? Why are these certain years not recorded, etc.? So one of the things we've done at Bright Future with our referral partner Causeway, we work with a specialist referral agency. We don't ask around backgrounds. We don't expect CVs to be produced. Instead, we talk about what the individual can bring to the employer that they are going to be part of. And that's a twist, Evelyn, but it's quite a big twist, I think.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Joe, do you have anything to add?
I suppose why I first and foremost welcome this particular discussion at this fantastic event and great AGM at a fantastic cooperative is because of the importance of it, the centrality to it for ourselves within politics, within progressive community action. For me, why I am particularly focused on that within my own work is not just a family piece to where I've come from and choosing your parents and other things you mentioned, but also my own small family and my own children now. We live in a society in which I know that they're going to struggle with their names. They have North African names. I know that they won't get the same opportunity that I've had. I know that they know about their family who apply for jobs with different names and get interviews and apply in their own name and don't. So we have a huge job of work in politics in terms of leadership. And that's sort of the place I'd like to sort of come to it from, is the power of politics to change some of the issues that you raise. As a political party, we have a huge amount of weight, a huge amount of responsibility to try and lead, try and create circumstance in which some of the challenges that Pete's talked about, and no doubt will be talked about later through the panel, are more surmountable. So for the party that I'm the General Secretary of, this is something where we are trying. We are trying to change both the politics but our own culture and the leadership within it. So where we've got to within that is being in and around ensuring that we are an organisation in which gives a diverse set of members and supporters and activists confidence within our organisation. We know that like politics is one of the best boys clubs there is, and we know that that's not on. So we've created space within our party where there are now member-led networks. There are with budget, with influence, with say. We have changed our governance to ensure that we have diversity within our leadership. We've changed our NEC to ensure that there are a wider range of voice and experience within our organisation. And also, of course, once you start to ensure that the governance is right, the spaces are right, the confidence and the roots are right within your organisation, it takes you through to better policy. It takes you through to better types of activity, better output. So as a political party, clearly we're interested in the power of community. We believe our cooperative values take you to the power of community action, empowering those who are in all neighbourhoods doing fantastic work, all parts of business doing fantastic work, but also a legislative framework. That's the other thing that we can bring, because there are legislative challenges as well. So there's some of the pieces that I was sort of launching at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is this overriding cultural barrier that people face with racism and prejudice as well, that of course can only be addressed at a political and government level. So thanks. On an employer sort of level, Rosie, I know you employ people who face barriers to job seeking. What are the things that come up all the time as common obstacles that people face?
I think it's really the lack of opportunities, also the lack of education around additional needs. So we support a lot of young people on the autistic spectrum, people with mental health issues, and often it's just the very simple things of, when you go for an interview, not being able to make eye contact, and some people seeing that as being rude. Actually, when we are truly inclusive and we understand about people's needs, that's one of the simple, reasonable adjustments that we can make and understand how we can work around that in the particular job role. Thinking through people with different kind of self-esteem levels and how we can support them to overcome those barriers. So within Miss Macaroon, we have the Macaroons That Make a Difference training course supporting young people to build those skills and confidence. And within Mid-Counties Co-op, we've been supported to deliver a bespoke program within their Walsall Town Centre store for young people from the local areas, really to overcome similar kinds of barriers. And it's just been fantastic to have the co-op colleagues come on board and be so incredibly supportive and understand that actually when the trainees come on the first day, it's going to be really hard for them to say hello. And just being understanding and not judgmental and being really welcoming, so that slowly, as their self-esteem and their confidence grows, then they are able to have those conversations and build those relationships that sometimes we take for granted, that actually on the first day you must be really friendly with everybody, you must introduce yourself and put your best foot forward. Actually for lots of young people who've never been in work before, who have additional barriers, then actually that's way too much to ask of them. And these kind of programs that Phil and the team at Mid-Counties Co-op are putting in place really do pull down those barriers and help young people into work that may have never worked before.
Yeah, thanks. So in terms of practicalities, and breaking down barriers for people with complex needs, presumably there's some people who just can't get back into work. So they have mental health issues, they have multiple issues. How do you support people who have really complex needs get into work?
Yeah, I think it's always thinking about a strengths-based way of supporting people. So, we have supported people into work, into long-term work that the Job Centre has signed off as unfit to work and would probably be unfit to work for many, many years. So I don't think that you really ever have anybody who is totally unable to work. You just have to find a job that fits in with their skills and capabilities, and understanding actually the barriers that they have are often strengths. So the really challenging circumstances have generally given people quite good self-awareness or really good resilience, and actually building their career around that and understanding that they have a huge amount to give because of those experiences and those barriers.
Yeah, and so it's a long-term process, I guess, and it takes a lot of commitment, I would suppose, on the part of employers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I think if we, see people as, that they have something positive to bring, then actually the investment doesn't feel quite so much, but it does take quite a long time. Yeah. And I think, a lot of it is hand-holding. And giving people opportunities where actually there is a safe space to fail, and actually making it really okay for them to learn those lessons in a really supportive environment.
Okay, thanks. Joe, do you have something to...
Just on a really practical piece, as a small employer ourselves, especially within a relatively closed industry like politics, what we've been learning from, there are fantastic organisations who are doing really interesting and innovative type recruitment in politics, believe it or not all, but there are some. And one I would point towards is the TUC. I think the TUC have got some amazing lessons for others to learn from in terms of how they go about recruitment from more diverse communities with protected characteristic. So what we do as a small organisation ourselves, whenever we now advertise for a role, we will also do pre-application sessions where you can get together. And we'll have a talk, find out about the organisation, ask any questions in that sort of safe space environment, because there is something about the language that we use within recruitment which is often off-putting, often not confrontational but sort of technical and challenging. You're seeking to challenge people, but through those sessions we found that, I think people feel much more confident in coming forward to political roles. I think they feel much more empowered in the type of organisation we are. And I think that really practical aspects like that have improved our recruitment. And then there's a piece about being that employer with people with sometimes complex needs. There's obviously reasonable adjustment, but beyond that, there is something about the type of organisation you wish to be. There's something about the type of management team that you wish to be, which I think is hugely important, because we, as a cooperative party, when we use our values and principles and we apply them to our life, it takes you to a place where you go well above and beyond as humans in terms of the type of organisation, culture that you're seeking to set. So there's some practical places, some great things to learn from TUC and others, but also I think something about the culture as well.
Yeah,
can I come in on that exact point? Because there's one thing, and I think both of these two have eloquently put across. We as an employer, with my Mid-Counties hat on, we as a facilitator with my Bright Future hat on, we spend our time learning about best practice from others, and we Mid-Counties, as well as Bright Futures, have learned a lot from what Miss Macaroon has done, what Rosie's done there. All the work that Joe's talking about, not always in the obvious places, If I'm frank, probably it wouldn't have been the first place I'd have gone to look at inclusive recruitment and what you can do to help in safe spaces. We, members of Business in the Community do a lot of best practice sharing as well. There's an awful lot of employers who want to do the right thing, and it's this question of how do you gain experience? That's where panels like this are really, really important. We've learned an awful lot from these two and other organisations, and it's a really important point, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Pete. Joe, going back to the wider societal perspective, the Co-op Party now has 1,500 elected local councillors, and I think, is it 26 members of parliament?
Yep.
So what are your elected representatives doing to encourage more open conversations, to try and break down stereotypes and prejudice?
This is the power of politics. The power of politics is a remarkable thing, and it can be so poorly used. For ourselves, when we're thinking about what our elected representatives do, we have a responsibility as an organisation for quality input. We have quality campaigns, quality issues, quality policy. So there's, first and foremost, before we say what are they doing, there's something about what we as a central party put into that network. And it is the network piece which I'll move towards next, because if you think about elected representatives, often they are the community champions that you know of. Often they are the activists. They certainly are networked within their areas. So for me, I think that there's something about the way in which they execute their politics. I think there is something about the way in which ourselves as a cooperative party and cooperative movement, we have a particular dynamic within how we talk about our worldview, our view of a better, more just society. So I think that what we seek to do is to ensure, if you think about, you may have come across things like cooperative councils and other aspects, we want to make sure that where we have density of cooperative elected representative, it's all about working with community rather than doing to community. That's the first sort of basic principle of how we go about our local government work. So from there, it takes you down the road towards campaign, takes you down the road towards positive action within councils itself. And I just want to touch on one thing about that leadership piece. We have a fantastic new charter which we launched just after the local elections, the Diverse Council Charter. The Diverse Council Charter doesn't just talk about the policy, it talks about how your council looks, how it operates, when are the meetings, how are the meetings structured, how do the papers come out, how are you seeking to represent the community in which you seek to serve. So there's some really practical things like charters, and I'm hoping that we're going to have hundreds of councils who take that on, in the same way we had over 140 councils going above and beyond their regulatory commitment on modern slavery, working with mid-counties and the wider cooperative movement. Something really practical like that, I think, would be a positive step as well.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And of course, the Co-op Party has an electoral agreement with the Labour Party, and at the end of the day, it's Labour members of Parliament, for example, who are getting selected. And I know there's still a job of work to do there in terms of racism and so on when it comes to selections for parliamentary seats. I know that in the current round, not a single black person was selected as a Labour candidate. Do you see a lot of influence that the Co-op Party can have on the Labour Party?
Look, I think in terms of our leadership, how political representatives are chosen, and where that confidence and where that drive for representation comes from is hugely important. There were increased diverse candidates selected in this first round. Some of them Labour and cooperative. I'm thinking about Camberwell and Peckham and Derby and others, but not enough. And that's the important aspect. So why I think that political parties in particular have to change. And I see this, whilst it's quite a narrow point around political parties, I see it more about community leadership rather than party politics, if you like. We have great leadership programs now within the Co-op Party, within progressive politics. They need investment, and they need commitment, and they need time. It's not good to say, oh, well, we've done one year and it's moved on. So why I'm pleased that we've been able to invest time and money in things like our equalities officers, things like our leadership programs, is because I hope in time the situation in which we find ourselves here and now, which is better but not finished, gets even better as well.
Yeah.
Can I just come in on it, because I think it's an important point actually. The work Joe has led, I think, is excellent. I think it is incremental steps, as you say. That's no different to an awful lot of employers. So again, within business and the community, mid-counties are proud to have signed a Race at Work charter. It's not a panacea, but at least it holds us to account. There are over 600 companies done the same thing, where we can all look at sharing best practice in this incremental step. We can do better, Co-op Party can do better, dare I say Miss Macaroon could do better, everybody can, but it's a question to me, I think, of applauding the steps that have been taken whilst encouraging the further actions that could also be necessary.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So Pete, question for you in terms of employment, maybe with your mid-counties hat on, but what can employers do to make hiring processes more inclusive and accessible?
So one of the things Phil talked about this morning, which I think is at the heart of what we do, is members. Ask member input into how we are doing as a society. So the reason we do that is because we should be walking in our members' shoes to be able to say this is the society they want us to have. If you now take that principle as an employer, put yourself in the shoes of the candidate as opposed to the interviewer. And it's amazing the changes. We're lucky. We've got an HR team, we've got Claire Foster, we've got Susan Bargis, we've got Bev Capel, we've got a load of people involved who are looking actively at best practice. The first thing we've done is education. So we put 650 of our management team at mid-counties through an awareness session of Race at Work. Is that the overall answer? Of course it's not, but it helps gain that education. The work Rosie is doing with Miss Macaroon at Walsall, everybody at mid-counties knows about that and knows about the differences that we've needed to do to accommodate people. The work of modern slavery, the work we are doing at Bright Future Co-op, we have organisations like Pilgrims, we've got organisations like Prince's Food, Marshall's Construction, the list goes on, who are having to do more than the regulatory requirement, to Joe's point, for reasonable adjustment. So the answer is everything. The big one to me is awareness, education and empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the candidate and it's amazing what you see.
So in terms of the hiring process, that would be the HR, I suppose.
It's
so
not just HR, it's across the business, and that's the point. So is anybody with managerial responsibility, whether it be hiring process, whether it be start of a new job, whether it be 6 months into the new job, that constant check-in. Are you doing things to make sure you are being the employer of choice?
Okay, yeah, thank you. And so in terms of support systems, once you get beyond the hiring process, Rosie, could you just talk to us a bit about what systems could be put in place to support people with complex needs in their roles so that they can thrive once they're in their job and advance in their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have put in place is a buddy system, and it's run by leaders. So they're young people who've been through the program, been successful, and have walked the walk. We've got our fantastic Maximad leader, Jackie, who is part of the Fairer Futures program in the Walsall store, who completed the program a few years ago. And she's just done an incredible job, overcome barriers, but just gone on to succeed in so many different ways. And not just succeed, but thought, I want to give back, which is just incredible for her to come back and support other young trainees, share her story, and just really be that inspirational person. And it just really helps to have a friendly, smiling face. And I think that's the key. With some of our other kind of new positions as well, we've put a buddy system in place. So it's somebody just to be able to ask those silly questions, kind of pick up the phone to, or just have a quick kind of, can we have 5 minutes outside? Just need to get a bit of fresh air and just talk this problem through. And I think that's really important for when people might have low self-esteem or additional barriers, just to be able to have somebody who's not your line manager, just to be able to talk to and get a different perspective on that and provide the additional support that might be needed.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really useful to have the practical experience perspective that you've had at Ms. Macaroon. Pete, in terms of hiring people, could you say what benefits mid-counties, for example, has seen from hiring people from different backgrounds, different social economic backgrounds, as a business? What advantages are there in that?
The advantage of many. I mean, the screamingly obvious one, we are a community-based retailer. So we are there to give back to the communities in which we trade. That's what we do, whether it be childcare, whether it be travel, whether it be utilities, whether it be food. How do you make sure you are then representative of those communities? The answer is obvious, by employing people from those communities. If you then extend it, so we've got survivors of modern slavery who've been through trauma. And there are elements of a business workplace which, again, will re-emphasize some of that trauma. How do we make adjustments to those to help those individuals? We work with organisations such as Hope for Justice or Sophie Hayes Foundation or whatever as referral partners and as, I suppose if you like, confidants to the point you were making about the safe space and not a line manager. That doesn't just help the candidate. That helps permeate throughout the organisation. We talk about the DOES values, we talk about equality, we probably should talk a bit more about equity as well. But the point being, it helps you change the culture of an organisation so that you can then say, A, we're representative, but B, from a management point of view, from a team point of view, from a colleague point of view, we're just that bit more empathetic. That's the bit which makes a difference and makes it a genuine employer of choice as opposed to a label you just put down somewhere.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Joe, if I could change the question slightly. So the Co-op Party is an integral part of the whole cooperative movement. So you're aware of what's going on in businesses, co-op businesses, and so on across Britain. But what would you say businesses need to do to promote equality, just the principles of equality and dignity in the workplace, which is, of course, what everybody wants at work, is dignity? I think,
and thanks for that. And just before I touch on that point, I wanted to say something about learning, because something within our own organisation, we've gone down programmes and different schemes which haven't worked. And I think it's really important for ourselves to not seek to say, oh, well, we've done this. We've got the programme, we've got it cracked when it doesn't work and it does need changing, because we've definitely had that experience over the last number of years. So I think there's something about learning, I think there's something about evolution. And I also wanted just to touch about visibility and something Pete was talking about. So I'm believe it or not, I'm the first, I think, Muslim General Secretary within the Labour movement. And for me, there's something about visibility. Now, I'm not going to come across as the first Muslim General Secretary within the Labour movement, but I do know that there's an awful lot of diverse members within our party who will take great heart from knowing that there are spaces and leaders like myself in it. So we do change the way in which we have events, we change the way in which we mark particular occasions. These are small things, but they really do mean a lot to our membership organisation and our supporter base. It's some of my favourite moments in the year where we come together and celebrate in different spaces. So I just wanted to make those two quick points. For ourselves, in terms of business practice and application, I think that it's not a trite point, but there are different types of business with different types of motivation. That is obvious and clear. I would say that the first thing that business should learn from is better businesses. I believe that cooperatives are much better businesses. I believe social enterprises are much better businesses. I think they have a range of better inputs, better types of motivation, better types of operation as well. So I think there's something about diversity in ownership and diversity in application of business which shouldn't be overlooked. I think too often people look at business as one type of organisation, one type of person, and that's not the case. we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we must be promoting different ownership models within business, different motivations in business, because it comes out, guess what, with different outputs.
Yeah, and for sure, the cooperative model, that has the dignity and equality built into it, in that you're an owner and you're in democratic control of your business. So I think we're down to the last sort of 10 minutes. Could I just give each of you sort of 3 minutes to give some summing up and your final thoughts on the subject of breaking down barriers to fair employment? Rosie?
Absolutely, thank you. It's been a really interesting discussion, so thanks everyone for contributions. I think for me, understanding barriers to fair employment, it doesn't just fall to the employer and the structural employment practices. Actually, we can all take some responsibility for it. If you, as a customer, a co-op member, walk into the Walsall store, you can see, you will be able to understand the journey that the co-op colleagues have been through, and you might see one of the trainees on the Fairer Futures programme, and actually you can support by having that additional bit of understanding and giving the feedback and giving positive feedback, and just talking about the kind of the reasonable adjustments that we can all make to be a little bit more understanding of somebody who doesn't look like us or doesn't respond in the same way as us. And actually, even if they're not a trainee of the Fairer Futures programme, then actually you're just being a little bit nicer to a retail employee. And I think that's really key, where we can all shift the dial across society. That will make it so much easier to break down those barriers to employment as well. And I think as employers, it's really about making sure that people from diverse backgrounds with additional needs can see people like themselves within the kind of roles that they want to get into. So making sure people are visible, making sure that people are given different opportunities to grow and learn before perhaps they're ready for them, and actually making sure that they're supported and understand that they have that safe space to fail, to make those mistakes. And it's a really, really important part of the career progression that they're on, that's the normal part of pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. So having that level of understanding and really bringing everybody along that journey, whether that be through education, buddy systems, linking up and collaborating with different organisations, or just the way that we speak to one another. I think there are so many different things we can do on very big and very small levels to support people to overcome those barriers.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you want to stop up very briefly?
Yeah, no, and it will be very quick, because we've talked about some really large dynamics within our country and some really practical and important pieces that individual employees and practices can take. For myself, I just wanted to sort of finish by talking ever so slightly about leaving something better than what is there today. I want to talk a little bit about commitment, whether that's in terms of your own activity, your own expression of what it means for yourself in your own business or within your own community. For me, why I get up every day and do the work I do is I want to leave something better than the situation that we have. So it's fantastic that you've put this particular discussion on today at this event. I think it's a really important forum for the cooperative, for members to come together and think about some of this piece for colleagues, but for members as well. So yeah, for me, I want us as a cooperative movement, and I know mid-counties are on this journey already, is to ensure that we leave something better. Thanks.
Thank you.
So a couple of points from me. The first is a selfish one. Every time I hear these two speak, and yourself, I learn something else. And I've spent my life trying to learn from others who are the best in this and say, how can we improve? The second one, building on the point of you said, Joe, about the legacy, but also your point, Rosie, about leaving something. 2015, the Modern Slavery Act was introduced into this country. What you could do, what many businesses have done, is just signed it, put a modern slavery statement up on a website somewhere, and that's what we can do. Our members, our colleagues, asked us to do something more than that. And it's that legacy which inspires me, inspires these two, and inspires all of us. We've now made a real difference to 75 individual lives in the UK over the course of the last few years. We can do more, obviously we can do more, but those 75 people's lives have been transformed by the work of Bright Future Co-op and our partner businesses referral members. I can't tell you how many colleagues in the businesses in which they're working, lives have also been transformed because they've learnt something. They've learnt there is this thing under the surface, which is modern slavery. They've learnt that not everything is visible, and thanks for sharing that previously, Joe, in terms of the Co-op Party. They've learnt that we can all make reasonable adjustments and make people be the best that they can be. And if there's one message, I guess, from all three of us evening, it's that. How do you make each individual the best that they can be? That's what I hope we've shared.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you very much for that, Pete. The panelists will still be around if you have questions for them. So I think they're going to hang around for another, well, Pete's going to be here, but Joe and Rosie.
Buy me a coffee, you can do it.
Yeah, so if you have any questions for them, I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you. So I'd just like to thank all our panelists once again, and let's give them a round of applause.